Hey all you groovy people. I'm going to do something a little bit different than what I typically do. I'm going to go over all the tools and tricks that you'll need for your first indie comic or graphic novel. A lot of you in the comments requested a video on how to make an indie graphic novel. Hence, I thought I'd go over the first steps that you'll need to take to bring your creative vision to life. A lot of you may not know this, but I've been working on an indie graphic novel of my own. Hence, all of the tips and tricks in this video will help you avoid the same mistakes that I made starting out. It's also worth mentioning that I'll be shamelessly self-promoting my graphic novel, Echoes of a Triumphant. Because why not? It's super groovy. Now before we get into this, please be sure to give a like and subscribe to Groovy Comics. You do not want to miss out on our awesome content. Now, I gotta warn you, if you want to make your own comic or indie graphic novel, it can be very time consuming and expensive. The last thing that I want for you guys is to go into debt or financial ruin. I just finished watching Squid Game, so yeah, let's avoid that. Now, chances are you're a writer like me, and chances are you're gonna need an artist to bring your vision to life. If you plan on hiring an artist to bring your creative vision to life, it can be very costly. Depending on the quality of the artist that you hire, it can cost anywhere from 100 to 200 USD per page. And chances are the cover for your book is going to be pretty expensive as well. Hence, before you get into this, please make sure that you have a job and that you're financially secure. If I was starting out all over again, I'd really put the time in to plan my budget. I'd figure out how much income I want to allocate to things like savings, groceries, and rent, and then I get super honest with myself and ask myself how much I really want to spend on this creative project. There's a lot of stories out there about entrepreneurs and creatives who risked it all, pulled a reverse mortgage, and really just risked everything just so they can finance their dream. I'm here to tell you that you do not have to do that. Before you even start writing the script, you need to figure out how much you want to save and invest for your project. You need to figure out your budget and save as much as possible to fund your indie graphic novel. I hate to be a pessimist here, but chances are your first indie comic or graphic novel will be very hard to get off the ground. It takes a really long time to build a following. So just make sure that you're not spending too much in case things don't work out. If you're passionate about comics, I'm almost certain that you'll make a killing in this industry. Just please, whatever you do, do not put yourself and your family into financial ruin. Another thing that I do differently is that I build a community of followers early on. Again, I'd hate to be a pessimist here, but chances are you're going to have a very hard time getting big publishers like Image Comics to pick up your first graphic novel. Hence, you're going to have to go down the self-publishing route as a beginner. And if you're going down the self-publishing route, building a community is the best way to give your book the attention it deserves. Hence, before you even start making your script, try to build an online presence. Get out there, get people excited about your creative project, and build your personal brand. Make posts on Facebook, Instagram, that hellhole they call Twitter, and get into the habit of making videos on YouTube. I really recommend that you get good at YouTube because it's one of the most engaging platforms out there, and it's really easy to monetize off of YouTube compared to other social media apps. Now that you have the basics set up and you have an idea for your story, you're going to have to ask yourself a very important question. You're going to have to ask yourself why this creative project is important. Now, when you're brainstorming for your script, you're going to have to ask yourself, why is this story important? If you can't bring any value to anybody through your book, why should anyone take the time to read your story? When you think about it, a lot of famous books, TV shows, and movies asked that question before they went into production. Take Breaking Bad as an example. To me, Breaking Bad is about the ramifications of income inequality. Breaking Bad is important as it shows us why it's important to reward great behavior as opposed to bad behavior in our society. As we all know, at the beginning of Breaking Bad, Walter White was punished for being a good man. Even though he was an honest and loving husband and father, and he was pretty educated with a master's degree in chemistry, he was at the tail end of his economic capabilities working as a high school teacher. Given the fact that he did all the right things and he was still living at the tail end of his economic capabilities, it's no wonder why criminality looks so attractive to Walter White. I'm honestly really happy that Breaking Bad became so popular because it really started a discussion on income inequality. And if people are talking about it, chances are policymakers are working hard to address the problem. Let's be real, probably not though. That's just wishful thinking. Politics is a mess. Anyways, the point is, try to answer that why is my story important question before you get into production. If you can't provide value for people, chances are they'll have a really hard time picking up your book. Now, the next point that I want to make is that you want to start with a comics one-shot. Now, like I said earlier, if you plan on hiring an artist, things can add up pretty quickly. Looking back, I definitely should have cut back on the amount of pages for my first story arc. Doing a 100-page graphic novel is just way too much as a beginner. If I had to start out all over again, I'd start out with a 20 or 30-page comics one-shot. Listen, I get that it's not everyone's dream to do a one-shot, but looking back, I definitely should have done it. It's best to start small and minimize the consequences from your mistakes than to go overboard and really mess things up big time. Remember that life is a marathon and not a sprint. This is 100% true for indie comics. After you learn your mistakes from your comics one-shot, move on to your graphic novel. Hence, when you're brainstorming for your creative vision, try to start off with a story that's around 20 or 30 pages long. Now, when you're writing a script, you need to make sure that your story has a great sense of direction. Dan Harmon's Story Circle is an excellent tool you can use to do that. When you're writing a character arc for your protagonist, make sure that your character starts out in a zone of comfort, but they want something. To get what they want, they should enter an unfamiliar situation, but they fail and adapt to it. Eventually, they get what they want, but they pay a heavy price. Then they return to their familiar situation, having changed. If that sounds confusing, I'll use The Dark Knight as an example. The story starts off with Batman fighting crime, but he wants to hang up the cape and cowl to be with Rachel. He tries to get Harvey Dent to fill the void Batman would leave if he retired. Things don't go as planned when the Joker arrives. Hence, Batman tries to adapt, but Harvey Dent rises to the occasion. He says that he's Batman and he takes an active role in taking down the Joker. Batman and Harvey capture the Joker, but they pay a price. The Joker holds Rachel and Harvey captive, and Batman only manages to save half of Harvey. After this, Batman reassesses his needs. Now that he's lost Rachel, the love of his life, he reflects. Batman now realizes that he cannot hang up the cape and cowl and beats the Joker. Alright, now that you have a sense of direction for your story, you can finally start writing your script. Now, when you're writing your script, try to stay away from the Stan Lee approach. As in, don't throw a bunch of words onto a piece of paper and expect your artist to make sense of it. Make sure your script has structure. As in, make sure that there's details associated with every panel on every page. Make sure that you number each page, number each panel on the page, and add the necessary descriptions, sound effects, narration boxes, and dialogues for your characters. It's worth mentioning that a lot of beginners like myself made the mistake of cramming way too much into one page. Now, some artists can cram a lot into one page, but in practice, it's best to stay away from that. If I were to start over again, I'd start off writing a script that has around 5 to 6 panels per page. That way, it'll keep your artist happy, it will allow your story to breathe, and it'll make it really easy for your readers to follow what's going on. Alright, now that you have your character arc and your script ready, take the initiative and revise everything. Now, no offense, but chances are the first draft of your script is going to be pretty weak. The last thing that I want to do is for you to send off a really weak script for your artist to work on. So really take the time to make sure that your script is perfect. Revise everything, make multiple drafts, and make sure that every line of dialogue makes sense. And when you get that done, go the extra mile and get an editor to revise your work. There's a lot of people out there that are offering editing services on freelance websites like Fiverr, Upwork, and Freelance. Again, try to be budget conscientious. Look for a reasonable rate from a person with a reasonable background. Once you get feedback from your editor, update your script and find your artist. Like I mentioned before, comic book artists usually charge a rate of around $100 to $200 US per page, probably even more depending on the quality of their services. So make sure that you find a reasonable rate from an artist with a reasonable experience. Like I mentioned before, freelance artists can be found on freelance websites like Fiverr and Upwork. You can even find some indie comics artists on Facebook. When you start working with your artist, try to be upfront and transparent about your expectations. You definitely want to do everything you can to build trust between the both of you. I highly recommend that you write a formal agreement for both of you to sign. When the both of you are engaged in a relationship where money is involved, writing a formal agreement will go a long way in terms of building trust. If I were you, I'd pay the first page upfront to show your artist that you're legit. Then I'd pay for each page after it's completed. And to make sure that production runs smoothly, I recommend that you get your artist to complete one page per week. That way, it won't take forever to get your comic finished. And try to be reasonable with your cover artists and letterers as well. Cover artists typically charge a rate much higher than that of comic book artists. And letterers usually charge a rate of $15 US per page. Now, as long as you're reasonable, upfront, and transparent with people, things should work out. Now, when your artists are busy bringing your creative vision to life, now would be a good time to get the administrative stuff out of the way. Really put in the work to get the ISBN barcodes ready. Make sure that you're doing everything so that your book looks aesthetically amazing. And if you're interested in making print copies, make sure that there's a 1/2 inch bleed on your pages. That way the artwork won't get lost in the gutter of the comic. And make sure that you're communicating with local printers. Make sure that your book will be ready for print when your final project is done. Not gonna lie, this is a really rough part for us indie comic creators. Now that your book is ready and all of the administrative stuff is out of the way, you'll need to market and publish your book. First off, you're going to want to build a strong online presence. Like I mentioned before, you should have already built a bit of an online presence on social media. Right now, you should build a professional website so that people can learn about your book. I recommend showcasing some sample pages, contact info, and a course of action to purchase your book. You should also consider starting an author's newsletter using tools like MailChimp and Substack to build your email list. The next thing I would do is collaborate with reviewers in the indie comic space. Reach out to comic book reviewers, YouTubers, bloggers, and influencers who focus on graphic novels or indie comics. The next thing you should do is create an engaging story trailer. A well-crafted trailer is a great way to market your indie graphic novel. You can post it on YouTube, social media, and you can run ads on many different platforms. Speaking of ads, if you really want to, you can pay for ads on platforms like Facebook, Instagram, or even Google that'll help you target specific groups who are likely to be interested in your graphic novel. And finally, I'd market your book on crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Crowdfunding is not only an amazing way to fund your book, but it's also an amazing way to build an audience. These platforms are fantastic for people who love indie comics. And by the way, crowdfunding is a different beast in and of itself. Hence, I might make another video on crowdfunding sometime. Now, in terms of publishing your book, there are plenty of routes you can take. If your marketing is strong, I recommend publishing via Amazon's direct Kindle publishing and Ingram Spark. I say this because these marketplaces have a lot of competition, so you want to make sure that you have the tools to stand out. Now, there are plenty of webcomic platforms out there like Webtoon and Tapas. These are excellent options if you just plan on going down the digital route. Other publishing platforms like Drive-Thru Comics are great for new creators. It has a loyal audience and it offers creators flexibility on prices and sales. However, it does have a smaller audience compared to bigger platforms. Now, if you want, you can try to make submissions to established publishers like Valiant Comics, Top Shelf Productions, Oni Press, Red 5 Comics, and Amp Comics. Keep in mind though that they're more likely to go with writers with a lot of experience as opposed to beginners. So there you have it. There's a lot of work that goes into making an indie graphic novel and putting it out there for the world to see. Success might not happen overnight, but if you're passionate enough, put the work in and put yourself out there, good things will happen. But what do you think? Was there anything that I missed? What do you think you need to make your indie graphic novel successful? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. As always, thanks a million for watching. Please be sure to give a like and subscribe to Reverb Comics so that you do not miss out on our awesome content. Stay groovy.